welcome back to Momarchy. What a fucking week, guys. How are we doing? Tanya, how are we doing? How are you doing?
We're hanging in. We're hanging in there. No, but in all seriousness, it's been a really, really messed up couple of weeks. We're recording this on January 28th. This will come out, we believe, February 10th, which we just learned is the birthday of our guest, Emma Bloomberg's son. So happy
Happy
fourth
birthday.
birthday. Hope you're having a really nice day. But yeah, man, it's been rough. How's your week?
So I wanted to share this because it has nothing to do with politics, and we'll get into how crazy things have been. But Tanya, learn from my mistakes. I accidentally washed my son's pull-up in the washing machine, and I, took out the laundry yesterday, and there was, this gel, this, weird gel substance everywhere, completely exploded all over the washing machine, all over the clothes, everything. Thank God for ChatGPT. I immediately, went to ChatGPT, and I was like, "What is this? What do I do?" And they were like my ChatGPT person was like, "Oh, no, not the apocalypse of the gel diaper." They knew exactly what happened. They told me what to do. And so this is a fun fact, mom hack, parent hack for everyone. So I had to take everything out one by one, wash everything under cold water, try to get the gel stuff off, wipe all the gel stuff out of the washing machine. But then I just put a cup of white vinegar just directly into the washing machine, and it cleaned it perfectly. And I don't know why or how, science, guys, science, but it worked. So I think that was a really good analogy of how my January has been, a constant. So of course I got home a little bit early from work to work out, and then I had to deal with this, then I didn't get to work out. So anyway, I wanted to make sure I shared with everyone. White vinegar will clean your washing machine magically.
That is good. That is always good to hear, and really good to keep in mind that double check every time that you're doing laundry that there's not something like a diaper in there.
A diaper. Also, I didn't know that that was the material in. I guess it makes sense. I don't.
I did only because of the movie Twisters 2, because they, like, in order to, I'm sure that this is super scientific, de-escalate the storms, they throw the material from diapers into the air and it, absorbs the tornado moisture.
Oh, wow.
If you haven't seen the movie,
What a plot.
honestly, great soundtrack. You should. I went to Pilates for the first time yesterday. You mentioned working out.
Good for you. How was it?
Really hard. And the woman who is awesome, I really like her a lot. I think that she's going to be a great coach through all this, but I'm 14 months postpartum. She was like, "Your body is 4 months postpartum." And I was like, "Okay."
Wait, she said that to you?
Yes.
That seems questionable. You don't ever talk about a woman's body, especially when it comes to pregnancy.
I was like, okay, yes, I guess I don't have any muscle mass and I'm still here, but, that's the baseline that we set, so
You're doing great. I mean, getting to Pilates is the hardest part. That is the hardest part, getting to a class. If you can get there, that's a win.
definitely. And it's actually a great studio because they have a lot of new moms, and their big thing is, bring your kids and we'll watch them as you do stuff, and so, they said if I ever need to bring my daughter that, they'll entertain her while we're doing Pilates, and I was like, "Okay, that sounds good, hypothetically, but I'm sure you don't know what, little ball of energy is coming your way, but I'm definitely gonna take advantage of that."
Yeah. Wow. That's a cool concept though that they watch the kids. That's at our rec center here. They have kids corner from I think it's 8:30 to 10:30 Monday through Saturday. So the kids don't have randomly. This is the thing with daycare people. If you have daycare, it's great sometimes, but randomly they just don't have school. So they just don't have school on Monday. It's not a holiday. They just don't have it. So I will be taking the kids to kids corner and then going to the McDonald's play place after. We've already made the plan. But the kids corner is great because then I can go drop the kids off and go work out and use the sauna, which is lovely.
But that's how I live.
Yeah.
And you'll definitely you'll need it after the intense kind of situation that we're in the world. So this episode is coming out a few weeks after the shooting of Alex Preddy, not the first shooting of somebody. Hopefully, there hasn't been another one since then, but God, who knows? And we need to talk about what happened. So, Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, a 37-year-old ICU nurse at the VA, was shot and killed by ICE agents during a January 24th federal enforcement operation. And the whole way that Department of Homeland Security approached this Trump administration, they just threw it out there and lied about him.
Obviously, we talked a little bit about Renee Good and now Alex Preddy. I was watching the news this morning and Trump was kind of retracting some of the things he said. It was like, "Oh, like this is a really unfortunate situation. I don't like that he had a gun on him." Whatever the fuck he was saying. It is so frustrating and really disheartening and devastating. I don't even know where we go from here. Authorities from the Department of Homeland Security, including Kristi Noem, claimed that Preddy approached agents with a handgun. We've seen the videos from different angles. That is not what happened at all. He was literally just like filming what was happening to a woman. And then he like got in between the woman and ICE agents and they just like threw him to the ground and just shot him. Like at no point was he like reaching for his gun. So this is just incredibly, incredibly scary, incredibly sad.
Yeah. I saw on Instagram a video that was supposed to be like Trump or Security explaining Mufasa's death in The Lion King. And it's like funny until it's not because it was so spot on of being like, and Mufasa was coming up with his claws out on the cliff, and Scar like reached out and said, like, "Long live the king." He meant for to help Mufasa, and it was just
It was gaslighting. They're just all gaslighting us.
yeah, it's something where like you wanted to be like, "Oh, this is funny," and it was, but it's not because like, oh my god, that's something like that's 100% how it would be interpreted and how it is interpreted in this moment. And so, I mean, I feel really bad for the people of Minneapolis. They must be terrified. I think that we all need to be scared. Don't want to be like a fear monger, but this is an American city.
This is real. This is happening.
Yeah, it's real and it's happening. And we need to don't hide behind stuff. You know that this is wrong. You know, there is a video. Stop making excuses for people. Stop saying that this is a one off because it's not. Stop thinking Kristi Noem is a good person because she's pretty gross. And just like everybody come to terms. It's okay to say that this is bad. It's okay to say that stuff is really, really messed up right now. In fact, it's way better if you say that than if you don't.
So, maybe a little bit of hope if this happens, but Minnesota officials are currently suing or sued to preserve evidence and secure a transparent investigation after state investigators were initially blocked from the scene. So, I don't know if it's like too late for this. I think that the same thing is happening with the Renee Good case, but these ICE agents, and I don't want to make a blanket statement about all ICE agents, but what we have seen in Minneapolis and across the country is repeated abuses by ICE that are, quite frankly, not legal. So I hope that excuse me, I'm clearly getting frustrated. I hope that these investigations by the state, not by the federal government, because those seem to be pretty biased, in my opinion, are carried out and that these people are held accountable for their actions because the Republicans love to talk about public safety. Well, ICE is literally making our streets less safe, our neighborhoods less safe, our communities less safe. People don't want to go out in public. People don't want to go to things. That to me is the opposite of public safety. So like I think we just need to think about like how do we hold these people accountable? Like it is I will not go to like an ICE protest. And I say it here because I don't want to put myself or my kids in danger.
I think that it is hard. It is hard because it's scary and your safety is always the priority and like you come first. But I think that we also are two people who are very engaged and that if you're not going to something like an ICE protest, make sure that at least like you're not spreading propaganda online.
Totally.
speaking of, for all of our listeners, TikTok was just the majority shares, I think, were bought by a Trump supporter. And now they're just, one, collecting way more data than they have before. Two, some users have not been able to use the word Epstein. And there's a lot of stuff, like negative stuff against the administration that's just being blocked. So TikTok's always been incredibly problematic in terms of like
TikTok is dead.
what actual information is getting out and people being like, oh, but it's the information from the people themselves. And you're like, this is so heavily curated by foreign governments and now by our government. So, like, take it with more than just a grain of salt.
Well, and I think that's a good reminder that, like, we used to have a TikTok, as you all know. I registered as a 13-year-old. We've solved that issue a few months ago. But I stopped posting on TikTok because our stuff was getting shadow banned. Like, whenever we talked about, like, abortion or vaccines, like, even said the word, our posts weren't being showed. So we are not going to be posting on TikTok anymore. So we are doubling down on YouTube and Instagram. So everyone, please follow our YouTube channel and our Instagram account. We've been growing there, which is great, and building our communities online. But yeah, TikTok is like done. I'm like done with TikTok. It was I think this big change went into effect on the 22nd of January, so like a few days ago, and I've already seen like countless people being like kicked off of the platform. Like I saw this one kind of political influencer and she posted on her Instagram the screenshot she got from TikTok and it said she was banned until 2034. Like, so we're done with TikTok, everyone. Sorry if you are on TikTok. It's also just like I don't want to be on TikTok. Like I don't want to be on TikTok and have to be posting on TikTok.
Yeah. And just so, as Sarah said, follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube. Absolutely. When we try to post some stuff on Instagram and YouTube, especially YouTube lately, it's been rejected for quote unquote electioneering, being too political. And this is just stuff talking about like
Yeah.
same sex marriage and abortion and like saying go vote. Those are the things that are being flagged and that like you can appeal, but there's still like the stuff that we put on there, there's a lot more that we want to put on there. And we're grateful for those who are watching and seeing what we're doing right now, anyways. So before we really get into our guests now, and just speaking of TikTok, pop culture, all of that, we want to talk about some stuff that has been in pop culture this week. So, Heated Rivalry, Sarah, you watched it.
I finally finished Obsessed. I'm obsessed. Like the first 2 episodes, I was like, I don't know. And then I got like super into it. And now I'm slowly rewatching it. And I actually started reading this series. So the first book is Game Change, which is about Kip and Scott, and it's really good.
Oh, I love Kip and Scott.
I know, I do too. So, gosh, and now my Instagram is like, for you is just like blowing up about Heated Rivalry and about like why women love Heated Rivalry so much because it's such an escape from like the women tropes and the heterosexual tropes that you like romance tropes that you see in other like soap operas, but it's just like so sweet and I love it. I love it. So, and actually, I was thinking about it, like, yes, there's a lot of, like, sex scenes, but, like, all you see is butts.
Yeah, lots of butts.
You don't see anything, like, there's no there you don't see it you're not seeing anything else, and, like, The Summer I Turned Pretty, you're seeing more than that. I think. I don't know. I think both of them are, like
Are you?
maybe you're not.
I feel like the summer I turned pretty, you're not seeing that.
I guess it's maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, I guess we all would have loved to see Conrad Fisher's butt. Maybe we did see his butt. I take it back, everyone. But I also was thinking about this, Tanya, and just like The Summer I Turned Pretty and Heated Rivalry, and like people so desperately want an escape from the shit that is happening in the world that like it just feel like these shows just feel so much more like I need them. Like I need them in my life because I know that sounds depressing, but it's true.
It's depressing and it's reality.
It's reality. I mean, especially like millennial moms. Like that's the only thing I see on my my Instagram is like millennial moms love The Summer I Turned Pretty and Hitty Rivalry. And I'm like, yep, that's me.
That's what you'll see on our Instagram account because when I go on my phone, it defaults to monarchy a lot. And before I catch myself, I watch like so many compilations of like Belly and Conrad, like Belly and Conrad's first thing. And I'm like, oh no, Sarah's gonna go on this and be like, why is my algorithm all Belly and Conrad to like 1,000 years by Christina Perry? Like,
I know it was yeah, on YouTube. It was the same. It was like Taylor Swift, and then The Summer I Turned Pretty. Now it's Heated Rivalry. Yeah, it's a lot. I'm like super super into the guy that plays the Russian,
oh yeah.
Connor Story. He's also like, it's so weird watching interviews with him because he's not Russian. Like he has an American accent, not a Russian accent. I'm like,
It does great.
damn, you're an amazing actor. Like, how did you learn Russian? That's just crazy. Anyway,
I don't know.
okay. I don't think a new Traitors has come out since we talked about it last.
I think that it did because have we talked about Ron?
Oh, getting voted off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really sad. And like Rob, Robbie Bobby, as he calls himself. I know you don't like Rob as much as I do. I think it's because I watched his whole Love Island season, and he was, like, kind of an asshole, but also, like, not an asshole. I just like him.
Oh, I watched it, and that's why I don't like him.
Oh, that's funny.
I found him to be such a dud on Love Island.
I think yeah, I guess I just kind of like that, like, quiet demeanor, that he's, like, real secretly, like, people think he's, like, some dumb guy from Alabama who just, like, looks good without a shirt on, but, like, I think he's pretty pretty smart, and
I like him more on Traitors than I did on Love Island. Like, I'm
he was a F boy on Love Island, for sure. He knows it.
yeah, yeah. But something that actually Jason, my husband, picked up on was the weird feud between Dorinda and Ron.
Oh, yeah, why?
And, like, how they always kind of are going at each other, and Ron has started to speak out about it, of saying that, like, Dorinda was really mean to him apparently off screen, and they didn't show a lot of it, and so,
Why, though?
I don't know. I don't know, maybe we'll see in the reunion.
Oh, I can't wait for the reunion. My husband always laughs at me when I watch the reunions. I'm like, the reunions are sometimes, like, better than the actual show. I did watch a little snippet of Ron doing because he's a stand-up comedian, doing, like, a post Traitors, and you guys probably have seen me on Traitors, and he talks about he's like, "Yeah, they convinced me, like, my agent convinced me to go on. He didn't tell me I'd be stuck in the castle with 20 fucking crazy people for 3 weeks." And I'm like, "I like Ron." I think I've always liked Ron. I don't know why people this is the problem with that show. If you're too quiet, then people, like, don't like you, and there's nothing wrong with Ron. He just, like it was the same thing with Donna. Like, Donna and Ron were friends, so that's, like, a green light for Ron in my mind. Like, Donna Kelsey would only be friends with, like, normal, cool people.
And apparently, Ron said that he is autistic,
Oh, yeah.
and that makes me which, like, I never caught onto, and that just makes me so sad thinking that, like, somebody was potentially bullied because of that on this show, which, like, it's a bunch of people that I think at the end of the day maybe aren't really nice, but just adds another layer of sadness.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay, the last thing I wanted to ask you about, because I think you're more of a Broncos fan than I am, is the Broncos lost in the playoffs. If they had won, they would have gone to the Super Bowl, which would have been the first time in, like, over 10 years, which would have been a huge deal. Do we care about this? How are you feeling about it? I don't personally care, but I'm curious if you do, Tanya.
I care, and I also really don't. Sorry if you're a Patriots fan and you listen to this, but, like, I'm not a huge Patriots person, and I really like the Broncos, but to the extent where right now I can't name a single Broncos player, but man, I'll root for them.
What about Bo Nix?
I can name him now. I can name Bo Nix. Um, and the last time that they won, I was way more into it. It's 2016 though, and I remember we were working on the campaign, and it was right when Iowa came to Colorado. Nobody cared about the Broncos except for, like, the Colorado people, and I remember just, like, sitting and tearing up and trying to watch the Super Bowl and being like people being like, "Who cares?" And I'm like, "I care. It's happening right now." Like, and being so sad. So, yeah, anyways, wish it was the Broncos. It's not. I'm on team isn't it Seattle? Is it the Seattle
I
Sea
have no idea. It's
Seattle.
the Patriots in Seattle.
I think so, yeah.
I think. I don't care. I truly do not care. I I know that sounds bad, but I'm just like, I don't know. I guess I care if the Patriots, like, win or lose 'cause my family lives on the East Coast, and I have some family members that are really intense Patriots fans. So if the Patriots win, they're gonna be in a better mood, but, like, also do I don't know. We can get into it another time. I just, like, am not a big football person, as we all know, I think. If the Chiefs were playing, like, I would be probably into it because of Taylor,
Yeah,
but that's it.
I get it.
And the after party scenes, but
Ooh, yeah.
those were so good.
That was good in Vegas. Mhm.
Oh, so good. I watched those. Speaking of things that I just, like, watched over and over again, I'm like, "This is unhealthy. I need to stop watching the scenes of Taylor and Travis, like, dancing to her songs at the club with, like, Blake Lively in the background." I'm like, "This is amazing." Anyway, that was so 2023, right?
So 2023. Yeah. Well, anyways, there's so much more that we need to talk about, and I guess we'll do it on our next solo ep, including some Trump math that my dad has helped us figure out. So stay tuned for that in the future. But today on Mamarchy, we are talking to someone who actually gets how to turn all of our frustration, outrage, confusion, desire to do something into action. Our guest is Emma Bloomberg, the founder and CEO of Murmuration, an organization dedicated to strengthening democracy by equipping local organizations, civic groups, and everyday people with the tools to build power where they live.
So, Emma has spent her career working at the intersection of public service, philanthropy, and civic tech, focusing on how democratic engagement actually works on the ground and is not just a theory. We brought her on because this show isn't just about surviving motherhood in a wild political moment. It's about how we participate in it and what we can do to make a difference. So, grab your Joy Burst. I've been really into these lately. They're from Costco and they have lions.
I don't know what it is. Is it a fruit juice?
It kind of they're like a flavored water and have, like, electrolytes and lion's mane, the, like, mushroom.
Okay, I'm into it. Yeah.
So, anyway, we buy them at Costco. My mother-in-law actually loved them and had them at their house, and so now we buy them. Anyway, grab your Joy Burst, your protein drink, your latte, whatever is getting you through the craziness these days, and let's get into it.
Emma, welcome to the show. We are so excited to be joined by Emma Bloomberg today, founder and CEO of Murmuration. And before we begin, we want to start out with our classic guest rapid fire to get to know you as a person. So, are you ready?
Sure.
All right.
It's the hardest part,
It's
rapid
not going to be
fires.
that painful, I promise. All right. What's the last book that you read just for fun?
Vivian Gornick, The Odd Woman in the City.
I've never heard of that. What's it about?
It's about New York. It's like she's a beautiful writer. It's her memoir about living in New York. I'm born and raised here, so it was one of those like I took it with me on vacation over holiday break. It's a quick read. It's like a beautiful sort of love story set of vignettes into life in New York City over the last couple of decades, and so I recommend it for anyone, but certainly for New Yorkers.
I love that. What is your comfort show right now? Something that you rewatch all the time?
So I didn't grow up watching TV, and I actually find it a little bit stressful as a result. Like it sort of feels like I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. So I don't know that I have a comfort show, other than I would say, and the thing that I rewatch, and I don't mean, I'm sure there are lots of fans out there. It's not that I rewatch it because it's my favorite thing, but I travel a lot for work. And I have noticed that no matter what city I am in, no matter what hotel chain I am in, no matter what time of day it is, there is always an episode of Friends on. And so there's just this like, let's check. Oh, yep, there it is. Like I just sort of feel like that's so as far as comfort goes, I suppose that's like a touchstone.
It's funny that you say that. We had a 90s nostalgia episode like maybe a month ago and we talked about Seinfeld or Friends. I chose Friends. Tanya chose Seinfeld. But then we recently had a guest who talked about how much they love Seinfeld. So I think this is the rivalry that we are currently in.
That we picked up, that we didn't know. The next heated rivalry.
I love Seinfeld, but I don't find it comforting. Like, it's supposed to be uncomfortable, right?
I agree with that.
Like, there's nothing about it that's, you know, I will definitely rewatch. If Seinfeld is on, I would rewatch it for sure.
I find myself finding Seinfeld comfortable because it reminds me of like me and my friends in a way that I'm like, okay, they're a little bit worse than us. So like we can feel
You
okay if
can feel
they're
better
talking
about
about
it
it.
because,
Yeah,
yeah, fair.
exactly. If you could go to any era in the past or the future, or go to the future, what would you choose?
My husband does a lot of work on climate change. And so I think I have an elevated sense of climate anxiety, a doom, disaster, etc. I would love to go into the future just to make sure that it exists. Like, I think that would give me a lot of comfort.
Great answer, Emma. That's a very smart answer. I feel like I want to go to a time. Yeah.
Would take a lot of, the stress off.
Yeah, to make sure we still are here.
Yes.
I think that's great. Scary, but true. We talk a lot about our anxiety as parents of climate and
What is the world that we're leaving to our, like, I think about this all the time. Like, yeah. Anyway.
it's a constant. So if you started over today, and this is a fun one, by the way, Tanya, we haven't done this to each other. We should and a later episode. And you had to buy all new clothing and accessories and all the things. What would your dream like aesthetic be?
I mean, you're not going to be able to picture this one because you don't know my mother. But my mother is like my style icon. Like, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, where we are. Somehow she always is perfectly put together with the right set of, like, there's always a necklace and there's a bracelet and they don't match, but they go nicely together. And there's colors, but it's not exorbitantly colorful. And I don't have that same eye for buying clothes or accessories. So I guess I would raid her wardrobe, except none of it would fit me because we are totally different sized. So if I could go and like just have her do all the shopping without having to then admit that my mother does all my shopping, maybe I would do that.
Maybe you can ask her after this. Just say, I threw out all my clothes. Do you have a little bit of
Yeah.
time?
Exactly. No, the minute I remember the month that my feet outgrew hers, and I was like, "You're kidding me! Like, I'm not going to be able to raid this closet of all of these shoes. It's like it should be that natural passage. They should all come to me, but no, my feet are too big. Anyway,
So thank you, Emma. You survived the rapid fire. That's always a fun one. We like to switch it up. So let's get into kind of the nitty gritty of where we're at right now in this moment. So, a common theme throughout our show, we talk a lot about the polarization of politics these days, of parties, of misinformation, manipulation, voter disengagement. It feels increasingly by the day very rough out there, especially for parents and moms and just like people trying to navigate the circumstances that we're in. So how are you feeling today in this moment?
I mean, you're catching. We're having this conversation at a time that feels particularly fraught for any number of reasons. But I'm sure you want this to be somewhat evergreen. But the sort of the way that last weekend sort of played out and the level of tension across this country feels particularly heightened. And I think the idea that America can live up to its promise feels more far-fetched than usual. Right? Like, there's just this massive gap between this vision of what America could look like if we all were in communities that were thriving and where we actually are. So I say all that to say I feel like I am carrying some extra weight at the moment. And I am all the more grateful for the work that I get to do because we spend lots of time in communities at the local level where there still is hope, where there still is civil discourse, where there are people working together on common solutions. And so I get to see that when you dial it down, right, from this like big picture that just feels so utterly chaotic and impossible and polarized and stressful in all kinds of ways, and go down into, neighbor to neighbor interactions, you can find, it's not everywhere, but you can find real examples of what it looks like when people come together to try to make a difference, to try to improve the lives of everyone around them. So I guess I'm feeling mixed emotions is the short answer to your question.
That's fair. So you just kind of touched on it. For those who don't know what murmuration is or murmuration does, how did you come up with the idea of it? first of all? And then how would you explain it to them?
So it sort of ties back to the conversation we were having around the role of parents. I was working at an organization called the Robin Hood Foundation on poverty here in New York City. And one of the levers for lifting people out of generational poverty is giving kids a high quality public education. And what I saw as I was spending more and more time with those who were trying to solve all the problems in that system was that parent voice wasn't really being elevated. Parents weren't really at the table in ways that seemed to me would be helpful for thinking about what a future could look like with better outcomes for kids. Uh, there were lots of organizations across the country who were trying to do that work, who were elevating the voices of parents and trying to bring them into the conversation, trying to have them engage not just civically in their community, not just have their voices heard, but also vote and at school board level and similar. And I was struck by the fact that they didn't have access to tools and data to do their work. They were sort of all working with, I don't want to say all of them just had spreadsheets or yellow legal pads, but it was basically the equivalent of that. And I had worked on campaigns. I knew what it looked like to actually do some effective targeting, to have some kind of a civic CRM, civic engagement CRM, where you could sort of track those interactions and go back to people, find your super volunteers, find your super organizers and similar. And they just didn't have that for any number of reasons. One of those was resources, right? These are lots of really small community-based organizations that aren't funded to invest in that kind of infrastructure. Another was political, right? Just as our country often can seem very polarized, our political and civic tech and data is also polarized. So if you're trying to do work that is nonpartisan and local, you're sort of homeless when it comes to a world of tech and data. And they also weren't staffed for that. I mean, these were organizers. These were, in some cases, they were moms or grandmothers or people who just wanted to affect change and hadn't been exposed to those sorts of things, so didn't even know what they were missing. And so it seemed like, the initial vision for Murmuration was really just that. We were going to be tech and data for organizations who were trying to elevate parent voice in and around public K-12. I think what we learned pretty quickly, all of those moms don't live in issue silos, right? Like we all care. We are moms. We care about the education that our kids are getting, and we care about lots of other things. And so how you think about really engaging in civic life more broadly and providing tools and data for power building, regardless of the issue that is top of mind in that moment, and really get communities taking more control of their own outcomes. That's sort of who we are.
That's so helpful for our listeners. Thank you for that overview. Can you share an example, maybe like a tangible example of like something that Murmuration did that you saw the difference that it made in a community?
Yeah, I mean, this might be more technical than or sort of I don't know, more about the system of democracy than what is it like to walk down your street than some of your listeners will be interested in. So happy to go into other examples as well. But we work with an organization called Rank the Vote. And the work that they do is really grounded in this idea that we should all have more of a say in who our candidates are and who we can vote for, what the options are and similar. And they used to just sort of go around and publicize that this was a thing or try to get it onto a ballot and hope that people would remember to flip the ballot and vote for it. And we were able to provide them with access and tools and to the tools to track people, but then also the data to better understand who was likely to be a supporter of this, who normally turns out in local elections, and how to really build a coalition and a big group around that. So, they were working with us in Boston this cycle. In 4 days, they had 1,600 people. They were able to pack a public hearing room, really sort of bring the conversation into the community so that more people who they hadn't been able to reach were able to learn about it and hear about it. And none of that's possible if you don't start with some base understanding of where your supporters are and how to reach them.
I have a follow-up to that just because Tanya and I come from the world of campaigns. We're both political consultants, and we learned how to, we're Democrats. And so for years, I mean, as this was like 15 years ago, we learned how to track, super volunteers, data all in Van, Vote Builder. So can you talk about like, for those people who know what that is, or maybe they don't, like what is the difference between Murmuration and say like a Vote Builder?
I love Organizer by Murmuration, which is our civic engagement CRM. And if you've seen Van, you've seen Organizer. Like I think it's prettier. I think it's more user friendly, but that's That's because I've got that kind of bias. But the big difference, I think, is the data that it sits on. We have been really deliberate in building Atlas, which is our data asset, to be a more comprehensive view of civic life in America. So I think the data that tends to be in the platforms that are aligned with one party or another tends to be tuned to that context. So it's often much better in swing states. It's much better in national elections or in statewide elections. We've gone to the trouble, and this is part of why we're a nonprofit, because the organizations that we work with wouldn't be able to afford to pay us to do this sort of stuff. But we provide custom turnout scores for any district of 5,000 people or more. We have models built on how to identify volunteers, how to identify people who will show up for meetings, how to identify people who are likely to vote in off-cycle elections. But it's all really grounded in the idea that there's this gap in the data that is, what does it look like at a really local level, and what does it look like when it's not party that's the driving force here? Like, how do we actually think about people who will cross party lines because of specific issues in a specific moment? And how do we not say Democrats are only going to work in these states, Republicans are only going to work with these states, and everyone else is sort of left out? What does it look like to have a conversation in a red state with a bunch of people who are aligned with the issues that you would be talking about in a blue state? And how do you find them? And if you don't have good data on how to find them, then you're sort of stuck. And we don't ever really build bigger coalitions around issues, right? Like, from where we are a nonpartisan organization, we believe deeply that people, regardless of how they identify, have a right to have their voices heard. And we also believe in any number of systems that have to change to allow for all people in America to thrive. You're going to have to build broader coalitions than either party, right? Neither one can actually solve all of the problems, nor does either one represent everybody. So if you want to really think about what does it look like to build a coalition around better schools, what does it look like to build a coalition around economic mobility, around a housing issue, around things around immigration, if we only ever talk to people who believe exactly what we believe, we're never building a broader tent. And that's how we've really thought about Atlas.
I think it's so important because we talk about this a lot on Mamarchy, even though we have been very clear that we are Democrats, mostly vote for Democrats. But we think that there is a huge gap right now, especially with parents and with moms, where people are feeling like I actually don't belong to a party. I'm independent. We both live in Colorado, where we have 51%. The 51% of people registered to vote are now independents, which is the high. It used to be 30%. 10 years ago. So I think what you are saying is really interesting and so important, because a lot of people that listen to our show and gravitate to our show, we talk to everyone, independents, Republicans, Democrats. And when we target, and we saw a lot about this in the postmortem of the last presidential, was, are we even talking to the right people, right? If you don't have the right data and you're not targeting the right people, we're never going to win. Or you're never going to be able to elect people that represent the vast majority of Americans. So anyway, that's my tangent. All that to say is we love what you're doing, and I think it's so, so important.
Thank you.
I'll add to that there's a couple of important pieces for what Sarah and Emma just brought up. Is one, most people don't understand how much data goes into elections and goes into something like turnout. And when these campaigns are looking at who they speak to, what counties, what precincts, that's essentially a neighborhood people are going into, that it's very, very data driven, and most of the time not random. And so, when they do like predictions of how things are going to turn out, that's based on what turnout has been like in the past, how many people have moved there, what the demographic of the people is that are going to be voting. The second thing is that I think right now there's a huge problem, because when people don't see themselves in either the Democrat or Republican parties, that they just disengage in politics altogether, because they think there's not a party for me, so I might as well just like step out. And that's with 51% of people in Colorado identifying as independent, like, that we can't. That's the majority of people. Like, the majority of people should be the ones that are stepping into the fray, and we should be encouraging that. We shouldn't be trying to push people out. So I guess that's my tangent.
No, I love it. I mean, we are not at 51% here in New York, but it is certainly growing, and is one of the reasons I'm a huge believer in things like open primaries, because you need to give people the opportunity to say, I'm opting out of both parties, but I still want to participate, right? Particularly as the percentage grows. The other thing, just to add to your tangent with my own tangent, on the data front, if we only ever talk to people who always turn out, right, we're never actually changing the shape of the electorate. We're not actually making democracy more participatory. We're not bringing in the voices of people who tend not to be heard. And so we spend a lot of time in our data and with our partners thinking about, all right, here are the people you need to talk to because they are most likely to support you and most likely to turn out. So let's just make sure you've got that. And then what does it look like to try to bring more people to the table? Like, where's that next tier and that next tier and that next tier of people who, if you spent the time with them, might actually participate or re-engage in a different way, because all of a sudden they see that there's a path to having some impact, that there's, and particularly at a local level, right? Like, I believe everyone should vote all the time, right? Like, I'm not saying don't vote in presidential elections. And it is much easier to make the case to someone in a local race where it's going to be decided by hundreds of votes, if not like maybe even 10 votes. I mean, sometimes these are really tight margins and really low turnout. And you can have an outsized impact if you and your friends and your family actually take the time to participate. And I like to think that, you participate, you feel like you've actually done something, maybe you've contributed, maybe you've moved the needle. That feeds on itself, and you get more and more people who are actually taking civic action, day in and day out, not just every 4 years.
So you have a national network of partners, organizations that you work with on various issue areas. Is there a common challenge that you're seeing across all these areas? Obviously, that's very broad and hard, but is there something that Murmuration does to help tackle this like specific issue?
Yeah. I mean, I would say part of the challenge that they all share is why we exist, right? They don't have access to the kinds of tools and data that could allow them to be more effective, more efficient, to have more impact. I think what we also see, and this is again why we're structured as a nonprofit, so that we can do everything we can to make this kind of stuff available to them in really inexpensive ways, is sort of it's a lack of investment in the sort of day in, day out work, right? Like, you see flurries of investment sort of every 2 years, every 4 years. You see massive investments into organizations that are working at the national level or the presidential level every 4 years. And every single day in communities all across this country, there are organizations doing grassroots work of building power in communities, right? And trying to take hold of their own future and shape a better one for themselves and for their kids. And it's a long slog, right? People like investing in things where there's a deadline. It's like, oh, we're going to do all this work, and then we either won or lost, and that's much more measurable, and it's just cleaner in so many ways. And I would just say across the board, all the organizations that we work with could use more of that kind of long-term commitment to understanding that power building takes time and is never done. And you just have to always be investing.
And on that note, couldn't agree more. I think people, and especially in today's world where we all have our cell phones we just want to see immediate results. And organizing and power building takes time, as you said. So as we kind of look towards 2026, and beyond 2028, the next presidential, like, how are you how maybe it's just as a question for you as an individual and not a Murmuration, but like, what do you see 2026 looking like? Do we need like one cohesive leader to rise up and be the voice of the people, right? Like, what does that look like? I mean, this is just the reason I ask is because we're constantly, right, thinking about what the next election looks like, to your point. And so, I'd love your take on that.
I would say if there were one natural leader that we all had on the tip of our tongue and we were ready to say, great, please go be the voice of all of us. Sure, that's like a really nice, easy, clean path, but I don't think we have that, right? And I think we don't have that there's any number of reasons. We could go on a whole tangent on that one, but we don't have that for any number of reasons. But part of that is people in communities across the country want different things or are prioritizing different things. There are common themes, and so there's ways to unify. And I think one of the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about is, what does collective action look like? Like, yes, we have a network of organizations and we try to serve each one of them individually, and we try to help them them feel like part of a network so that they can help each other. Like, what would it look like if in communities across this country, whether I was coming to the table because of education and you were coming to the table because of criminal justice, but we cared about the same community, instead of you doing your work and I did mine, we did work together, right? Even though, like, the community being at the center of it and the potential for change being at the center of it, there's just much more power, much more opportunity for change, I think, that can be unlocked if you really start to think more about collective action and bringing together lots of voices. The other thing I'd say, I know I started out by saying people want lots of different things, but we run something called Civic Pulse, where we talk to 500 people every day in open ends. Like, what are you talking about at your kitchen table? What's giving you hope? What's keeping you up at night? And because of all of the conversations that we see at a national level, because of where we started this conversation on how polarized the country is, I think we were really expecting to see all of that in the data. And actually, when you just ask people what's giving them hope or what's keeping them up at night, there's a lot of commonality. Like, there's just a lot of common ground right now in this country about where people are scared, where people are frustrated, and where people still have hope. And so again, then I come back to, let's unlock the power of that, because I don't see one person rising up to be the voice of all of it. So let's just acknowledge that we don't all have to be exactly in lockstep. We don't all have to, be ready to get into line behind that one person, but collectively we can walk together arm in arm, right? And it's okay if you believe something slightly different from me, because in the end we want the same thing for the country. Is that helpful? I know it's not.
Yeah.
It would be much cleaner if I could just say yes, and here's the person. But I don't think that doesn't feel viable to me.
Yeah. I don't think anyone, if someone is saying this is the person today, I just,
Well, the scary thing is it is already 2026, right? I was thinking, like, oh, in the future. Oh, wait, you mean right now?
Yeah, like, in a few months, what are you looking for? I keep on thinking that somewhere we just haven't found them yet. Like, someone, man, woman, whoever is going to pop up from the middle of nowhere and say, "I've got it," and we're gonna be like, "Yeah, you do." That's thank you. But since that's not likely to happen, which, we can collectively be that leadership, we can be that voice moving forward. What would success look like to you, whether it is 2026, 2028, when you're looking 10, 20 years down the road for Murmuration? What do you want to be able to look back and think, like, wow, we made a huge difference here?
Yeah. Look, our vision is a country in which everyone has the opportunity to live a free, healthy, and dignified life, right? Like, we go back to, it sounds naive to some people, but we go back to sort of the vision that we've always had for this country that has never actually been realized, right? But believe in the potential of it. Believe that we can live in a world where communities across the country are thriving, not struggling, not just getting by. So when I think about, 10, 20 years down the road, it does feel to me like so much of the change has to happen from the ground up, not from the top down, right? Like, we've been trying top down for a long time, and it's not working, right? Things are worse now than they were in many cases. So for me, success looks like more communities coming together, understanding that in any given moment, they might have to prioritize one issue over another, because you can't necessarily do everything all at once, but coming together to shape better futures for themselves and their kids. And I think that can be everything from, if you think about what does that mean for your average person walking down the street. I don't know. We have a rule: anytime you walk down the street, you have to pick up at least one piece of trash off the street. Like, that's the civic engagement that is easy for my daughter to get her head around. She thinks it's really gross. She's a total germaphobe. She carries wipes about it. She's like, she really, really gets mad at me about it. But it's a way that she can contribute to making our neighborhood a better place to live. I am a poll worker. I want to make sure that as many people as show up to vote are actually able to do so, within the confines of our system, but in all the ways that it's supposed to be set up to elevate people's voices and to let them have a say. And you can pick whatever the issue is in your community, right? And you can do that through volunteering. You can do that through raising awareness. You can do that through electing people and holding them accountable for the change that you want to see. So increased participation, more voters, more people who have not voted historically actually participating in elections and choosing their leaders, and more leaders listening to their communities and making decisions not based on the loudest voice, but on the broadest collective voice, on like, what does my community actually need? Those are the kinds of things that I really want to see as I look back on how we've been able to have an impact in communities.
Yeah, that's great. Well, moving on to our next segment. We love this one. It's called Make It Make Sense. And we're gonna sometimes we talk about politics, sometimes we talk about parenthood, a little bit of both. It's really hard to make sense of everything happening these days. So, I know you're a mom. You mentioned your daughter, and having to make her pick up trash off the side of the street. I have a 3.5-year-old, and he actually would think that was really fun. But how do you balance all the work you do and being a parent?
I don't feel like I'm balancing anything, if I'm being totally honest about it. I think in any given moment, I make trade-offs. And there are times when I know I've got to show up 100% for work. And that means I don't show up 100% for my kids. And sometimes it's the other way. And there's no way that I'm showing up 100% for work in those moments when my kids really need me. I'm transparent about that. Our team knows that I'm a mom. We have lots of moms on our team. Yeah, we make trade-offs. I think one of the things that I've been lucky enough to be able to point to, again, I travel a fair amount and my kids are used to it. But as with Olke, I've got an almost 11-year-old and an almost 4-year-old. And when my daughter, the almost 11-year-old, was about 7, all of a sudden she started getting upset that I was traveling. And I always had. And I think she was sort of old enough to process it more, I don't know, differently. And to be able to explain to her why I have to travel, why I think my work is so important, why in this moment, I get it. It feels like I'm prioritizing work over her, but I'm trying to help make this country a better place and explain, in terms that she can understand how we do that. I don't know that it all gets through, but at least I know in that moment I'm going to do something that feels to me like it is potentially making a difference and like it's important. So yeah, I'm not balancing anything. I mean, when I was waiting for this interview to start and I had the extra 3 minutes, I was logging into the school portal to make sure that they knew that she wasn't riding the bus home on Thursday because I realized I'd forgotten to do it, right? Like you sort of grab minutes in any given day for one thing or the other, and that's yeah. I don't think it's balance. I think it's a system of trade-offs.
That's such a refreshing and honest answer. And we've gotten that or something along those lines from a few other women that we've interviewed on here before. And I think that that's just such a different message than what one we're used to and two we grew up with of a like, you can have it all.
No.
You can't.
And it was always a like, oh, you have to compromise on some things. It was like, if you're good enough and you're talented enough, you can do it. But like, you're going to have to just do it. And so it's always thank you for like your candidness that it's important for people to hear. It's having it all is very different and doesn't exist in just figuring it out. Sometimes you just got to do that. So for women and for especially moms, what is it important for them to know about her civic life right now and what that looks like?
Gosh, I think, I've always been a believer that more women need to be engaged civically and politically, right? We need more people running for office. We need more women giving money to candidates. We need more women voting. We need more women volunteering, all of the things. We are a force that has not been fully unlocked. And will be excited for the day when we sort of realize that. I also think, to go back to being a mom, modeling the importance of caring about your community to your kids is part of being a mom. Right. So yeah, I mentioned the pick up trash, but like, be nice to your neighbors. Understand how change happens. Right. My almost 4-year-old had some kind of an election in their threes program. I think it was to elect either cupcakes or cookies. Like it wasn't, but you can have those kinds of conversations. Political doesn't have to mean polarized. It doesn't have to mean partisan. It can just mean actually understanding how does the system work? And as parents, I think we have, and as moms in particular, have a role to play on that. Yeah, and then I would just say, I live in New York City. It's very easy to be anonymous. Get to know your neighbors. Like that is civic engagement, right? Knowing that you can knock on someone else's door and say, "Hey, can we just talk about this?" Or I know you're experiencing the same thing I am, or just, "Hey, how are you doing?" Like I think we default too much to I can do it all by myself, and modeling to my kids that we can be part of a broader community, even in a place as anonymous as New York City, is important.
As an aside, I remember so vividly, I think it was in third grade, that we had an elementary school election and it was for Miss Frizzle versus Garfield. And I was so on team Miss Frizzle and really excited. I mean, like, what a precursor for life ahead, because I was like, there's no way Miss Frizzle won't win. She's got this. And then Garfield won, and it just like devastated me to learn that why do people vote for this cat who eats lasagna? That's his experience. Like Miss Frizzle has so much to give, and like
Oh,
learn to
Tanya, that's a real precursor to
I
2016.
yes, oh
obviously
We don't
my
need to
didn't
get
learn
god.
my
into it.
lesson then.
We don't
Oh,
need to get into it today, but
yeah.
Yeah,
wow,
That
I haven't heard
feels
that
like it
story
could get
before.
heavy really fast.
I know, I know. Poor poor third grade Tanya. If only you knew. Um, but speaking of kids, what gives you hope for your kids?
It's funny. They are like me in lots of ways, and are better than me in so many others that I find fascinating. Maybe better is the wrong way to put it, but I have a tendency to be somewhat introverted. My kids are extroverts. My kids know how to walk into any room and make friends with people. It's really fun to watch that because that was not my experience growing up. I guess what gives me hope is in part what drives me to do the work that I do, which is that I do believe that this country can be a better place, right? I believe, and we at Murmuration sort of collectively we talked about this a lot, but we believe in the inherent goodness of people. And if you don't believe in that, then we're sort of screwed. But I understand that it can be hard sometimes, but we believe in that. We believe in sort of interconnectedness. We believe in collective power. And if I believe in those things and I continue to do the work that I do, and my kids continue to be sort of a source of hope for me in that they can then carry that on into the future. I know it's hard not to think that there's potential for everything to be better. Again, if we go back to the lightning round, if I could just quickly see into the future to make sure there was one so that this isn't totally futile, then I have hope for it being a better place.
Absolutely.
They're also just, I mean, I'm sure you see this with your kids. There are just so many things that right now seem fraught in this country that our kids think is utterly ridiculous. Like they've grown up, they're growing up in a different world, and it's a much more inclusive, much more understanding sort of place, and how we can sort of harness that and let them keep that and grow into that as a country, I think is interesting, and yeah, again, gives me some hope.
Well, on that note, Emma, thank you so much for joining Monarchy today. We appreciate your insights, all the work that you do with Murmuration. If folks are interested in learning more about Murmuration, you can go to murmuration.org. We'll also put the link to their website in our show notes. But anything else that you want to leave our listeners today before we wrap?
I would just say, just a reminder, civic engagement doesn't just mean voting once every 4 years, right? Find ways to get engaged in your community, find ways to connect with the organizations that are doing organizing work around issues that matter to you. Listen to people around you and hear what issues matter to them. You might find that there's something that it turns out you care about that you didn't even know was a problem. And really think about the opportunity that you can find in connection with other people, right? Human connection. We're social animals. Human connection is something we all need. And think about that as part of how you can drive change and make your community better for everyone.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. And for our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching on Spotify or YouTube or listening in the pickup line or going to work. Thank you for being part of our community. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and do all of the things. But we will see you all next week. And Emma, thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Thanks. Bye bye.